Welcome to Dental Flix Uncut, the ultimate podcast where dental professionals discover the secrets to exponentially growing their practice. We are Dr. Anissa Holmes and Allison here, the co-founders of Dental Flix, and each week we're bringing the dental industry's giants to you. From elite educators to transformative speakers, from innovative coaches to top-tier consultants, we deliver the insights of those who have revolutionized the dental field. Are you ready to elevate your practice beyond your wildest dreams? Stay tuned. A world of unmatched growth and success awaits with Dental Flix Uncut. Welcome to the Dental Flix Uncut podcast. We are here with an amazing guest, Margy from Laser Point Presentations. Welcome to the podcast, Margy.
Thank you. Thank you. So thrilled to be here.
We are thrilled to have you here. And we would love to just kick this off with you introducing yourself to our amazing audience and just sharing a little bit more about how do you help the industry?
Sure. So Margy from Laser Pointer Presentations, and I am a speaker coach and visual slide designer. And I've been in dentistry specifically for, almost 25 years. And I've had this business now for 11 years. And really what my mission is when a speaker steps up on the stage, that they're going to knock it out of the ballpark and get the results that they actually want.
So I've had the opportunity of spending a lot of time with you last year, and you have a very, I would say, just unique and strong talent of being able to listen to somebody speak and then really like dissect it into buckets and into a way that makes so much sense. And it's just this like brilliant talent. I was like blown away the first time I got to see you and experience you do this. And where did that come from? How did you come across this talent?
I'm a listener, and I listen for not just the words that are being said, but what it is that somebody is really trying to communicate. And I think that that's one of the challenges that speakers have, right? Is that we think we're supposed to get on stage and be this expert and share all this stuff, when really what we want is to impart something that we know or that we figured out or relieve some pain and actually, help the audience along their journey. So when we get caught up in all the stuff, it actually is a barrier to that. So I'm listening for what is that through point? What is that thread? And Allison, you probably know this about me as well. I'm kind of an analytical type. So really my coaching process has evolved into something that is much more, how do I use the words? It's much more step by step. However, the outcome is just finding what's unique about each speaker, so that it's not a cookie cutter, but rather it breaks down and makes sure that you have all the elements that you really want to communicate to your audience. So I'll start with the very first one, and that is the question that I've asked for years of speakers, which is, at the end of the day, people are only going to remember maybe 10% within about a week. So what is the one thing that you want people to actually know or do at the end of a week? And I either get stunned silence as people are trying to wrap their heads around what that is, or I get I want them to do this and this, and also this, and this is really important, and I really need them to do that. And so the net result is that either they don't know or they have way too much. And so that's an example of how I really work with speakers to try to distill down that focus and then go deep instead of trying to be all things to all people.
Yeah. I'm going to steal Anissa's question for a second. I'm sorry, Anissa.
You're good.
But this is just coming to me so strongly because I think anyone in dentistry has experienced this, where they've worked with or were a leader who couldn't communicate their point or their message, or there was so much going on in their head that they're trying to give their team a solution, a strategy. This is the vision, this is the mission, this is where we're going, but they don't have the skill set or even the ability to overcome their fear of public speaking in a way like that to really execute that message. And so I don't want to underpin like how critical this is, because when we can really hit that point, when we can help people really understand what we're trying to say to them, that one thing they can walk away with, that can transform your practice. And I remember being an office manager, trying to put PowerPoints together and trying to get the 1,000 things that were on my list to communicate to my team. And many times I floundered. I had a hard time with it. And what you teach really will create a culture or a vision or a complete vibe inside of a practice, because you're allowing people that need to communicate be able to do it in such an effective way.
I mean, I think that one of the things that I started doing early on with my clients was, I think it's really helpful to do things in a tactical way, not on electronics. So I use note cards, and I say, if you have all those hundreds of ideas in your head, write one idea down per note card. And when you lay all those out on the table, you can begin to see that there's some natural groupings. These four things all fit together. These three things all fit together, but this one thing is kind of off on its own. And so what I say is that one thing is still important, but it's not important to everything else at the moment. So don't try to jam 10 things in. You actually have two buckets and this one extra thing that you'll do separately. And it's much easier to present those two buckets than 10 things. So just simple strategies like that. But Allison, I want to say to you that one of the beauties of coaching is I can't fix me with me. I sometimes struggle when I'm putting together my own talk, and I'll put everything in that I want, and then I'll sit back and I'll say, okay, have I done what I preach? And the answer is no, because I think it's all important too. So I have to go to a trusted coach and I have to say, help me through this, because we can't prioritize in our heads our own stuff quite the same way as we can with a coach.
So I'm a little bit curious.
Yes.
This is Dental Flix Uncut. I'd love to know a little bit about your story and how did you get into helping speakers with presentations, right? Like there was something that happened that said inside of you, you know what, I want to help people with this. And this is why, right?
Yes. I'm going to get personal here, if that's okay.
Yes.
So I grew up in a single mom household where my mom was an alcoholic. And I didn't, we lived in some chaos, right? And so I didn't really grow up kind of having adulting skills. I just was raising my brother from the time that I was 10. And by the time that I hit my 20s, like I was making a mess up of my life and following in my mom's footsteps. And it wasn't until I was in my mid 30s that I got sober. And at that time, I realized like I didn't know how to do life quite the way that maybe somebody in their 30s might expect to. But mentors started showing up along the way, and women who taught me how to dress better, or who taught me how to put makeup on the correct way, or how to be a good employee or a good employer. Women who taught me, some challenging, how to deal with some challenging relationship issues, like all the things that my mom just wasn't capable of teaching me. And they helped me become the best version of myself. Now, I can't ever repay those women. And in fact, they're not the sort of women that would want that. But the best that I can do is I can help other people become the best version of themselves. And that's why I love what I do, because I get the opportunity to work with really smart people, innovative people, creative people, like business geniuses, medical geniuses, who, why should they know also how to be able to present confidently and successfully on stage? So I get to help them be the best version of their selves, which is my ability to pay it forward.
I love that so much. And I totally see your passion. This is the thing that I've learned and realized the people that are the best at what they do, the people that are exceptional at what they do are the people that love what they do. And I see that in you so much. You
Yeah,
wrote a book
I
this year,
did.
last year. You wrote a book last year. Tell us about it.
Yeesh. Wait, Zoom, do it. It's called Write a Killer Talk. And what I'm so excited about this book is it's the culmination of all of the coaching that I do with clients. And so I did what I preach. I started with note cards, and I had note cards all over my dining room table for months. My husband's like, "Are we ever going to be able to eat here again?" And I'm like, "Maybe, maybe not. I don't know." But what it does is it walks the reader through step by step by step exactly how I work with my clients. And when I was done, I realized that there was a middle section missing. So I had laid out kind of the how do you come up with this big idea? I had laid out the elements of a killer presentation. I had laid out how to make it memorable. But what was missing was how do we move the audience from where we are starting to where we want them to be? And what I realized was that there are different journeys. In some cases, the journey is simply like education. We're just explaining how something works and we want to get them to competency. In other cases, though, we're trying to change mindset. We're trying to shift beliefs. And yet other times we're trying to like get people to rally around an idea. And what many speakers are dealing with is getting people who think that they've already tried it before and it doesn't work. But you know this is different. And how do we get them to overcome that bias? And the journey in a talk for each one of these is actually different. So what I did was I went back and I looked at like all the classic story structures and all the classic movie structures, and they follow various different lines. And I thought, can those be applied to the way that we put a talk together? Not the telling of a story during a talk, because that's different in and of itself, but the structure from the opening statement to your closing call to action. And lo and behold, I was able to map different story structures to those different journeys. And so in the book, what I've done is I've taken all those note cards that I have people write out, and you can choose which of these journeys that you think your audience needs to go on and lay out your note cards such that you're building your outline. And I think it's really unique, and I think it's really helpful. And the people that I've coached using this method are just blown away at the results, because they say, I've always gotten, good applause. I've been invited to more meetings, but I'm not getting the results that I wanted. And now that they're using this, they're like, Margy, it's like magic. It's changed everything for me, but it's the same information just put together differently. So I couldn't be more proud of this new book. And I hope that Write a Killer Talk will be in every speaker's hands before long.
This is amazing. I've studied the work and I had a little opportunity to work with Michael Haig. And he teaches this concept, nothing like what you do, obviously, right? But he talks about, and he works with, Will Smith, and he works in the movie industry. And he says essentially like every good movie, right, starts with, a particular character, and then he goes on a journey, and then he experiences, tribulations, and then, all of a sudden he becomes, powerful and a winner, and he's triumphant, right? And so it takes people on this sort of emotional roller coaster, right? Where you're with the main character, you're against other people, right? And it's an actual structure. It's a framework,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so many movies, as you said before, follow a framework. And so I love it. Like I'm more of a fan of you now than I even was before, like 5 minutes ago, because like just knowing that your whole objective is to apply a framework with a strategy, right? To take an audience through, they're coming in with one belief, right? And how do we shift the belief to a different belief where people say, I never thought about it that way, right?
Yeah.
And leave with an idea that's going to transform their future actions based
Yep.
on how you are able to transform their beliefs. And so I'm like, well, how do I sign up? Where do I
No, I
sign up
was thinking this
my
too.
next presentation, right? Because this is huge, right? And
Yeah.
you know, some people say, well, oh, I've got somebody to help me with my presentations, you know, and they go and get somebody to just like make their PowerPoints for them, right? But this is not that, right? This is
Mm-mm.
not that. And so I love what you're doing, which is literally helping people to create the framework and the structure
Yes.
and be able to deliver something that's powerful and impactful.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that I really worked hard on in this book was what I was saying to Allison earlier, breaking things down into manageable chunks so that when you're getting ready to write a talk or revise a talk, right? I don't know about you, but I stay up at night and I'm like tossing and turning and I have all the ideas and all the things. And then I'm getting up and I'm like, what did I think about? And so this brainstorming method, putting it into very specific bite-sized chunks, then allows you to do that playing around with that structure and trying out to see, is this getting me where I want to go? Or do I need to now zero in more on this area so that it allows you to see things differently than when it's just flying around in your head.
And I think it lets people be like stay in their expert zone of genius. Like you said, like you're working with top physicians, clinicians, doctors,
Mm-hmm.
speakers, and you know, sometimes like you said as well, we can be in our own minds and not be able to see what we want to say clearly because we're so close to it. We're so attached to it. And nothing's worse than getting up on stage and performing and being so passionate about what you want to say and feeling like you walked away from it not quite hitting that mark, like
Mm-hmm.
not quite getting it. You're like, I don't think that they got exactly what I was trying to say. And the good news is anybody can work with you and make sure that doesn't happen and make sure that
Absolutely.
you can detach yourself a little bit from the content so that you can look at the structure of it. And you know, I'm a huge neuroscience geek and I love to understand like how communication affects the brain and how do we actually receive the information that we're learning. And I can just see that you're using so much neuroscience and
Mm-hmm.
and like data around how do people actually learn and listen. So it kind of seems silly not to work with you if you have something important to say.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you brought up the neuroscience stuff because that actually leads me to the other half of my business, which is the visual slide design. And that's where I really get into using that neuroscience. And I've done a lot of research into um, how does the brain actually retain information and retrieve information. And what we now know is that whether you're a visual learner, a kinesthetic learner, or an auditory learner, you store information in your brain visually. So when I say the word car, you see some kind of car, but you don't see the letters CAR. But here's the trick. Anissa, what kind of car do you see?
I see a Volkswagen Beetle, a red one.
A red one. And Allison?
I actually saw like a red Chevy.
Okay. So if I'm a speaker and I want you to remember something, I'm leaving it up to chance. First of all, you're even going to remember it because I just have the word car up on my slides and I just said it. And second of all, you both remembered something differently. So if I really want to plant something into your minds, I need an image that's not just, people leadership. Wow, all these hands together, or wow, jumping up in a sunset. It's what is the moment look like when this leadership concept needs to then be remembered and utilized. If I'm talking about something clinical, we're really good at showing all the clinical stuff, but am I actually showing the position of the hand as it's holding a new tool? Or am I just showing the point of it in the mouth? Like these are the sorts of things that we don't appreciate how impactful they are We just think that pretty slides, throw it now into one of the AI tools or get somebody off of Fiverr to make pretty slides. Okay, that's great. It's better than having text-heavy slides, that's for sure. But it's not leveraging the way that the brain learns and retains. And you're not planting the memory moments in such a way that in the future, they'll know where in their filing cabinet of their head they need to pull that back out from.
I'm curious of a story, a transformation that might have happened with someone that you've worked with, and maybe something that they came back and shared with you about the outcome, the result, as a result of making that shift and investing in themselves and deciding to up-level who they are as a speaker.
Well, I can think of a very recent one, and she was actually going to be speaking at the Dental Festival last summer. And she's a good speaker, but I've watched her and her body language. And she has always sort of kept a little bit of the hands in front of the legs and a little bit of the shoulders and a little bit of the dipped head. And her content is good, but it wasn't exciting. And so she finally reached out to me and she's like, I've been meaning to do this for a long time, but I hadn't, I haven't found the right time. And I really would like this to be different. And so we worked together and were able to take exactly the content she already had and rearrange it and find one of those frameworks that the main thing was she was not connecting with the audience where they live today. She was not starting with saying, how many of you are this? I understand. Let me tell you a story about somebody that I know that's where you are today. Getting on that same page and then being able to then take that same content and arrange it in such a way that by the end, the people in the audience saw themselves going through this journey from the pain that they were in to this potential success. But more than that, I also helped work on her slides. And she was so excited when she got them back. She was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything quite like this. It's sort of like when we find just a perfect outfit that just makes us look good. And when I peeked in and saw her on stage, you guys, her shoulders were back, her posture was tall, her head was held high. She was engaged with that audience. They were eating out of her hand. And she came back to me later and she's just like, I've never felt so confident. I've never felt so proud of what I have. And I've never felt like I could really stand up there and deliver the way that I do as a result of both the work that we did and the slides that I have. So that to me is sort of representative of what I hear again and again and again.
I love
Oh,
that.
gosh.
I love that. And I know that you work with a lot of, dental speakers. But I would imagine, as Allison shared, right, there are opportunities if you are a dentist. I mean, to me, I grew my practice by, grassroots, right? Going into Chamber of Commerce, right? Like doing presentations about cosmetic dentistry or the right age to take your kids to the dentist, right? And so there are opportunities within dental practices, right? For dentists to be able to create presentations, for
Absolutely.
office managers to do presentations for their teams. My office manager was here actually at my home, my dental office manager last week. We had a mastermind with other office managers, and she says, Doc, I made a PowerPoint. And I said, this is amazing, right? And so there are definitely opportunities to be able to create those PowerPoints, right? If you work
Yes.
with a dental practice as well.
I've actually done quite a bit of that. I've worked with practices who both want to have that bigger annual kickoff meeting with their team to reframe, readjust, get that vision. And we really dig in and understand how they can communicate what they're feeling inside to their teams in such a way that the teams will then buy in. And I've worked with people who want to put together presentations for public facing. So the patient education types of talks. I recently worked with an orthodontist who is in a very crowded market. And she's like, I need some way to sort of stand out. And so we were able to really craft some fun stories and some neat ways to kind of make her stand out as her personality, her practice, and why somebody should choose them over another orthodontist in the area.
I really feel like there are very few things that are more important than being able to communicate your message effectively. And I think a lot of people don't get it right. And it's not because they don't want to, it's just a lack of knowing and understanding the science and the strategy around it. And so I can just imagine the amount of people that you are helping. And I'm just so grateful for you. If somebody wanted
Thank
to
you.
work with you and have you, I'm like literally about to write you an email and be like, Margy, I've got some presentations coming up, some really big ones. I need your help. If somebody wanted to work with you, how do you want them to connect with you? And what does that process look like?
So there's a couple different ways that people can work with me, but first and foremost, shoot me an email, and that's Margy, M-A-R-G-Y, at laserpointerpresentations.com. I work with people individually, one-on-one coaching, and I also have a Write a Killer Talk retreat, which is a small 6-person retreat where we rent an Airbnb and we come with ideas and leave with your talk outline done. And that's magic, because then the instant peer review, the instant feedback from each other helps build that stories and build those presentations out to be just magnificent. And then I also do a online slide design bootcamp where there's an optional pre-day where we can focus on PowerPoint skills, but the rest of it is agnostic. You could be using Keynote, you could be using Google Slides or Canva or whatever it is, but the principles of the design start with, oh my God, Margy, I'm not that creative, and get you all the way through the elements of what you should be thinking about when you do a design, and then some of that geeky neuroscience, how to actually put things together in such a way that you can create your own deck and really knock it out of the ballpark.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the Dental Flix Uncut podcast. Guys, reach out to Margy. I think you won't regret it. And thank you just so much for all of the work that you do for our industry and for helping so many of our speakers.
Well, thank you for having me. I am in love with Dental Flix. I think what you guys are doing is magnificent. And it's so fun to see what you guys are doing, but also just changing the way that people can access these very smart speakers that I get to work with, that other people get to work with in the comfort of their own homes or at their practices with their teams. I mean, it's just genius. So thank you for letting me be part of it.
Thank you so much.
You've just unlocked valuable insights with Dental Flix Uncut, but there's more. Dental Flix is not just a podcast, it's a thriving community, a hub of knowledge, and the #1 online streaming CE platform in dentistry. With just a few clicks, you can start exploring a wealth of resources, including in-depth training on leadership, case acceptance, scheduling, hiring, weekly marketing calls, insightful gap assessments, and scorecards, all designed to help you master what you discovered today and propel you further on your path to dental excellence. Head to dentalflix.com to get started for free and embark on your journey towards mastery. Thanks for tuning in to Dental Flix Uncut. See you next time.